The great crystal dome of the Zephyrian High Council chamber had never felt so cold. Emperor Vashatai the Eternal sat on his throne of living metal, watching as his most trusted advisors shuffled through data tablets with worried expressions. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled without question. Their ships were faster than light itself. Their weapons could crack planets in half. Their armies had never known defeat. Today, that certainty felt fragile. "Show me again," the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "Admiral," Kethavar stepped forward, his scaled hands trembling slightly as he activated the holographic display. The image that appeared made everyone in the room shift uncomfortably. It showed the edge of Imperial space, where strange energy readings had been detected 3 days ago. "The signatures are unlike anything in our databases, Your Majesty," Kethavar said. "The ships appear to be made of basic metals: iron, steel, aluminum. Their propulsion systems use chemical reactions. By our standards, they might as well be using wooden clubs." A few council members chuckled, but the sound died quickly when they saw the numbers. "How many ships?" asked Councillor Yathara, leaning forward in her floating chair. "Our best estimate is between 15 and 20,000 vessels," Kethavar replied. The chamber fell silent. Even primitive ships were dangerous in those numbers. Fleet Intelligence Officer Yelandra rose from her seat. She was younger than most council members, but her mind was sharp as a plasma blade. "Your Majesty, there is something else. Something that concerns me more than their primitive technology." The Emperor's glowing eyes fixed on her. "Speak." Yelandra touched her data pad, and the hologram changed. Now it showed the movement patterns of the unknown fleet. "Look at their formations. These ships move with perfect precision. Their spacing is exact. Their tactical positioning is flawless. This is not the behavior of refugees or scavengers." "Perhaps they have good computers," suggested Councillor Morthek, dismissively. "No," Yelandra said firmly. "We intercepted some of their transmissions. They are not using artificial intelligence for navigation. These formations are being maintained by organic minds, thousands of them all working together without a single mistake." The Emperor studied the hologram more carefully. The unknown ships moved like a school of fish, each one perfectly aware of all the others. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "What do we know about their home system?" he asked. Admiral Kethavar cleared his throat. "They appear to come from a system they call Sol. Their home planet is the third one from their star. They call it Earth. Our long-range scans show it as a death world, Your Majesty." "Death world?" The Emperor raised an eyebrow. "The gravity is nearly twice what most species can survive. The atmosphere is poisonous to most life forms we know. The weather patterns are violent and unpredictable. The surface is mostly covered in a corrosive liquid they call water. Honestly, we cannot understand how any intelligent life could have evolved there." Councillor Yathara laughed. "So we are worried about creatures from a poisonous rock? This is ridiculous." But Yelandra was not laughing. "Your Majesty, there is more. We managed to decode some of their historical transmissions. These beings, they call themselves humans, have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, not just with other species, but with each other. For thousands of years, they have been perfecting the art of killing. All species fight wars," Morthek said with a wave of his hand. "Not like this," Yelandra insisted. "Most species fight until one side surrenders or retreats. These humans have records of fights where they refuse to surrender even when facing certain death. They have stories of small groups holding off much larger armies. They seem to view impossible odds as a challenge rather than a reason to give up." The Emperor was beginning to feel uneasy. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had always faced rational enemies, enemies who knew when they were beaten, enemies who valued their lives more than their pride. "What are their weapons like?" he asked. Kethavar looked uncomfortable. "Crude, but effective. They still use kinetic projectiles in many cases. Metal slugs fired at high speed. Some of their larger ships carry missiles with nuclear warheads. Their energy weapons are primitive plasma cannons and laser systems. Nothing that should trouble our shields." "Should not trouble our shields." Ylandra corrected. But, Your Majesty, I have been studying their tactical transmissions. These humans do not fight the way we expect enemies to fight. They adapt quickly. They use their weaknesses as strengths. They turn their primitive technology into advantages. How can primitive technology be an advantage? Asked Counselor Yathara. Because it is unpredictable, Ylandra explained. Our defensive systems are designed to stop energy weapons and guided missiles. But what if they simply ram their ships into ours? What if they fire unguided projectiles from unexpected angles? Our computers might not know how to respond to tactics that are thousands of years out of date. The Emperor stood up from his throne, pacing to the great window that looked out over the imperial capital. Below him, millions of beings from hundreds of worlds lived in peace under Zephyrian rule. They had built the greatest civilization in galactic history by being smarter, faster, and more advanced than everyone else. Your recommendation, Admiral? He asked without turning around. A show of force, Your Majesty. We send a small fleet to demonstrate our power. Once they see what they are facing, they will surrender like all the others. Then we can decide whether to destroy them or make them another client species. And if they do not surrender? Kethavar hesitated. Then we destroy them, Your Majesty. Even primitive ships can be dangerous if there are enough of them. Better to eliminate the threat now before it grows. The Emperor nodded slowly. It made sense. The Zephyrian Empire had not remained powerful for 3,000 years by ignoring potential threats. Better to crush these humans now, while they were still weak and far from imperial core worlds. But as he looked out at his perfect, ordered capital city, he could not shake the feeling that something was different this time. The humans had come from a death world. They had survived conditions that would kill most civilized beings. They had spent their entire history learning how to fight against impossible odds. Prepare a compliance fleet, he ordered finally. 3. Battle cruisers should be more than enough. Give them the standard ultimatum, surrender or face destruction. If they choose destruction, make it quick and complete. I do not want other species thinking they can challenge the Empire. It will be done, Your Majesty, Admiral Kethavar said with a bow. As the council members filed out, Ylandra lingered behind. Your Majesty, I hope I am wrong about these humans, but if I am right, 3 battle cruisers may not be enough. The Emperor looked at her for a long moment. 3 battle cruisers could destroy 100 worlds, Intelligence Officer. They will be enough. But as she left the chamber, Ylandra was already preparing contingency reports. Something told her that the Zephyrian Empire was about to face an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered before. In the depths of space, 20,000 human ships continued their steady advance toward Imperial territory. Their crews did not know they were about to make history. They only knew they were far from home, facing an enemy that had never been defeated. It was exactly the kind of odds humans had been beating for their entire existence. Captain Morthak had destroyed 47 worlds in his long career. The memories of those victories decorated his ship's command center like trophies. Holographic displays showed burning cities and surrendering fleets. Each conquest had followed the same pattern: arrive, demand submission, and watch as primitive beings begged for mercy. Today was supposed to be conquest number 48. His 3 battle cruisers dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the disputed zone. Each ship was 2 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could level continents. Their shields could deflect almost any attack. Their crews were trained veterans who had never known defeat. Contact the lead enemy vessel, Morthak ordered from his command chair. The bridge around him hummed with quiet efficiency. His officers moved with the confidence of beings who had never lost a battle. The main screen flickered to life, showing a group of human ships in the distance. They looked exactly as primitive as intelligence had promised. Metal hulls scarred by space dust, crude weapon mounts, chemical engine exhausts glowing orange in the darkness. But something about their formation made Morthak pause. The human ships were positioned perfectly to support each other. Every angle was covered. Every weapon had a clear firing line. It was the kind of tactical setup that usually took hours to achieve. These humans had done it in minutes. Channel open, Captain, his communications officer reported. Morthak stood up, letting his full height and impressive armor show on the transmission. This was psychological warfare at its finest. Most species surrendered just from seeing a Zephyrian, warrior in battle dress. Primitive vessels, this is Captain Morthak of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. You have entered space claimed by the Eternal Empire. You will surrender your ships immediately and prepare to be processed. Resistance will result in your complete destruction. You have 60 seconds to comply. The human response came back almost immediately. The voice was calm, steady, and completely unimpressed. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are in violation of neutral space. We do not recognize your claim to this system. Withdraw immediately or we will consider this an act of war. Morthak blinked in surprise. In 47 conquests, no one had ever talked back to him like that. Most species started begging before he finished his ultimatum. Did they just threaten us? Asked his weapons officer, sounding genuinely confused. I believe they did, Morthak replied slowly. Interesting. Open a channel again. The screen showed the human admiral now. Chen looked to be middle-aged by human standards, with gray streaking through his dark hair. His uniform was simple compared to Zephyrian battle dress, but his eyes were hard as space ice. You misunderstand your situation, human, Morthak said with his most intimidating smile. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered thousands of worlds. Our technology is beyond your understanding. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Admiral Chen tilted his head slightly. Captain, your ships are impressive, but you have made two mistakes. First, you assumed we would be afraid of you. Second, you assumed we would fight fair. The transmission ended. Morthak stared at the blank screen for several seconds. Around him, his bridge crew exchanged confused glances. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Captain, his sensor officer called out. The human ships are moving. They are spreading out into what looks like an attack formation. Attack formation? Morthak laughed. Arm weapons. Let us show them what real power looks like. Target their lead ship. Disable their engines. Perhaps watching their flagship drift helplessly will convince them to surrender. The Zephyrian battlecruiser's main gun charged with a sound like thunder. Energy that could vaporize a city block focused into a single deadly beam. The shot lanced, out across space toward the human flagship. It missed. What? Morthak spun toward his weapons officer. How did you miss? The target was not even moving. Sir, it was moving. All the human ships are moving. They are using random course changes to avoid our targeting computers. On the tactical display, Morthak could see what was happening. The human ships were flying in unpredictable patterns, never staying on the same course for more than a few seconds. It made them almost impossible to hit with conventional weapons. Fire, again. All weapons. Blanket the area. The Zephyrian ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the space between the two fleets. Surely some shots would connect, most did not. The few hits that landed sparkled harmlessly against human shields. Primitive shields, but apparently effective enough. Sir, his communications officer said nervously, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. What are they saying? They appear to be coordinating their attacks, sir. Every ship is receiving targeting data from every other ship. They are sharing information in real time. Morthak had never seen anything like it. Zephyrian fleets relied on centralized command. Orders came from the flagship and were followed without question. But the humans seemed to be fighting as one giant organism, each ship knowing what all the others were doing. Incoming missiles, his sensor officer announced. Morthak looked at the tactical display and almost laughed. The human missiles were crawling toward them at a fraction of light speed. His point defense systems would have no trouble stopping such slow projectiles. Defensive guns engage missiles. The automated weapon systems open fire, easily destroying the first wave of human missiles. Then the second wave, then the third. How many missiles do they have? Morthak muttered. Sir, his sensor officer said with growing alarm. There are more missiles coming. A lot more. The tactical display lit up like a festival celebration. Hundreds of human missiles were streaming toward the Zephyrian ships from every direction. The defensive guns were firing constantly now, but there were too many targets. "Raise shields to maximum," Morthak ordered. The first missiles that got through exploded against the battlecruiser's shields with disappointing weakness. Nuclear weapons were so primitive, the shields held easily, but more missiles kept coming. And more and more. Shield strength at 80%, his engineering officer reported. 70%. 60%. Morthak watched in growing disbelief as his mighty battlecruiser was slowly worn down by weapons that belonged in a museum. The humans were not trying to penetrate his shields with powerful weapons. They were simply throwing so many weak weapons at him that the shields could not absorb them all. "Sir, the other battlecruisers are requesting orders," his communications officer said. Morthak looked at his tactical display. His two escort ships were in similar situations, surrounded by swarms of human missiles and taking constant fire from dozens of directions. All ships advanced to close range. "We will ram their flagship and end this quickly." It was a desperate move, but Zephyrian ships were built for ramming. Their reinforced hulls could punch through almost anything. The three battlecruisers accelerated toward the human formation, their massive engines pushing them to attack speed. The human ships scattered like startled fish, but that was expected. Morthak locked onto Admiral Chen's flagship and prepared for impact. At the last second, the human ship rolled 90 degrees and fired its engines at full power. Instead of ramming the human flagship, Morthak's battlecruiser plowed into a spread of nuclear mines that had been quietly deployed during the missile exchange. The explosions lit up space like a newborn star. When the light faded, the mighty Zephyrian battlecruiser was drifting, dead in space, its hull cracked open like an egg. Emergency beacons screamed into the darkness as life support failed throughout the ship. Morthak pulled himself upright at his command station, bleeding green blood from a dozen cuts. Around him, his bridge was a disaster of sparking electronics and dying crew members. "Damage report," he gasped. "Engines destroyed, weapons offline, life support failing," his engineering officer reported with his last breath. On the main screen, Admiral Chen's face appeared again. The human looked tired but determined. "Captain Morthak, this is Admiral Chen. We are prepared to accept your surrender and provide medical assistance to your survivors." Morthak stared at the screen in shock. "You defeated 3 Imperial battlecruisers with primitive technology. How is that possible?" Chen's expression was almost sad. "Captain, your technology is impressive. But technology alone does not win wars. Experience does. Determination does. And we have been fighting wars since before your empire existed." The transmission ended, and Morthak slumped in his command chair. Through the cracked viewport, he could see human rescue ships approaching. They had lost. The impossible had happened. The Zephyrian Empire had been defeated by primitives with metal ships and nuclear weapons. As consciousness faded, Morthak wondered how he would explain this to his emperor. How could he possibly make anyone understand that the humans had won not through superior technology, but through superior will? In the depths of space, the human fleet regrouped and tended to their wounded. They had lost ships too, but they had achieved something no species had done in 3,000 years. They had made the Zephyrian Empire bleed. The news reached the Imperial capital within hours. 3 battlecruisers destroyed. Captain Morthak in emergency medical treatment. His surviving crew telling impossible stories about humans who fought like demons and refused to surrender. Emperor. Vashti stared at the report in his private chambers, reading it for the 5th time. The words had not changed. The impossible remained impossible, yet it had happened anyway. A soft chime announced an incoming call. Admiral Kethvar's image appeared in the holographic projector, his scaled face grave with worry. "Your Majesty, the entire fleet is talking about this defeat. Some of the younger officers are beginning to question our superiority." The Emperor felt something he had not experienced in centuries: genuine anger. "Then we will remind them why. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled for 3,000 years. Prepare Warfleet 7, all 50 ships. You will personally command this operation." "Your Majesty, surely that is excessive." These humans, they simply caught Morthak by surprise. A dozen ships would be more than enough to crush them. Admiral, the Emperor's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. 3 battle cruisers should have been more than enough. Yet they are floating dead in space while primitive humans celebrate victory. I will not allow this humiliation to continue. Take 50 ships. Destroy every human vessel you find. Make an example that will be remembered for 1,000 years. HFY bowed his head. It will be done, Your Majesty. 2 days later, Warfleet 7 assembled at Proxima Gate, the strategic jump point that controlled access to 3 star systems. Admiral HFY stood on the bridge of his flagship, the eternal dominance, and felt the familiar confidence that came from commanding overwhelming force. 50 capital ships, each one capable of destroying planets. Crew members who had conquered dozens of worlds. Weapons that could crack moons in half. Whatever tricks the humans had used against Morthak, they would not work against a proper war fleet. Admiral, his sensor officer announced, we are detecting human ships at the edge of the system. Approximately 200 vessels. HFY smiled. The humans had brought their entire fleet to face him. They would die together, and the galaxy would remember the price of challenging the Empire. All ships advance in battle formation. Charge weapons to full power. Today we restore the honor of the Imperial Navy. The Zephyrian war fleet moved forward like a wall of death, their massive hulls gleaming with reflected starlight. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, built over decades by the finest military architects in the galaxy. The human fleet waited for them at the edge of the asteroid belt, their primitive ships looking like toys compared to the Imperial vessels. But their formation was perfect, and they showed no signs of retreat. Open a channel to all human ships, HFY ordered. The response came from Admiral Chen again, his face now familiar to every Imperial officer in the fleet. Admiral HFY, I presume. Your reputation precedes you. 37 conquered worlds, if our intelligence is correct. HFY was momentarily surprised that the humans knew who he was, but he recovered quickly. Indeed. And today I add your worlds to that list. You defeated Captain Morthak through trickery and surprise. You will find no such luck against Warfleet 7. Admiral, Chen replied calmly, you still do not understand what you are facing. We are not trying to defeat your ships. We are trying to defeat your empire, and empires fall when their fleets refuse to fight. The transmission ended before HFY could respond. What did he mean by that? Asked his tactical officer. Psychological warfare, HFY dismissed. Ignore their words. Focus on their destruction. All ships, open fire. 50 Imperial ships unleashed hell itself. Energy beams that could melt. Continents lanced across space. Plasma bolts that burned hotter than stars streaked toward the human formation. Missiles carrying enough explosive power to shatter asteroids filled the darkness between the fleets. The human response was immediate and completely unexpected. Instead of returning fire or trying to dodge, the human ships accelerated directly toward the Imperial fleet. Not in attack formation, but in what looked like a suicide charge. What are they doing? HFY demanded. His answer came as the first human ship struck the shields of an Imperial cruiser at near relativistic speed. The ship disintegrated instantly, but its mass and velocity created a massive feedback explosion that overloaded the cruiser's defensive systems. They are ramming us, his tactical officer said in disbelief. They are deliberately destroying their own ships to damage ours. More human ships followed the first, each one sacrificing itself to weaken or destroy an Imperial vessel. It was insane. It was impossible. It was working. Evasive maneuvers, HFY ordered. Do not let them get close enough to ram. But the humans had planned for this too. As the Imperial ships scattered to avoid the ramming attacks, smaller human vessels darted between them, laying mines and firing missiles at point-blank range. The perfect Imperial formation dissolved into chaos as captains tried desperately to avoid both ramming ships and hidden explosives. Admiral, his communications officer called out, we are receiving surrender requests from 3 of our ships. The crushing victory has lost all power. The divine right is venting atmosphere. The eternal glory is requesting emergency evacuation. Kethvar watched his tactical display in growing horror. Red icons marked damaged or destroyed Imperial ships. Yellow warnings showed vessels with critical system failures. In less than 30 minutes, his unstoppable war fleet was being torn apart by an enemy that should not have been able to scratch their paint. "How many human ships have we destroyed?" he asked. 47 confirmed kills, Admiral. But they keep coming. It is as if losing ships only makes them fight harder. That was exactly what was happening, Kethvar realized. Each time a human ship was destroyed, the others seemed to become more aggressive, more desperate, more willing to sacrifice themselves for victory. They were not fighting to preserve their fleet. They were fighting to destroy his. "Sir," his sensor officer announced. "New contacts jumping into the system. More human ships approaching from 3 directions." The tactical display showed Kethvar's worst nightmare. Fresh human fleets were arriving to join the battle, surrounding his damaged vessels. He had walked into a trap that used his own confidence against him. "Admiral," came a voice from his communication system. Admiral Chen again, broadcasting, on all frequencies. "You came here expecting to find frightened primitives. Instead, you found soldiers. Your ships are magnificent, Admiral, but your crews have never faced an enemy that refuses to quit. Every human vessel you destroy makes the rest of us more determined to win. Can you say the same about your forces?" Kethvar looked around his bridge. His crew members were staring at their instruments with expressions of fear and confusion. They had trained for glorious conquest, not desperate survival. Many of them were sending worried glances toward the escape pods. Chen's voice continued, calm and implacable. "You can surrender now and preserve the lives of your crews, or you can continue fighting and watch them die for the pride of an emperor who will never know their names." "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "we have lost 26 ships. Another 12 are severely damaged. Our remaining vessels are low on ammunition and taking heavy casualties." Kethvar closed his eyes. In his long career, he had accepted the surrender of hundreds of enemy commanders. He had never imagined he would be the one making that choice. "Open a channel to all Imperial ships," he said finally. "Sir?" "Do it." The channel opened, connecting him to every surviving captain in his fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Kethvar. Cease fire and prepare to surrender. The battle is lost." The silence that followed was deafening. "Admiral," came a hesitant voice from the cruiser. Righteous fury. "Are you ordering us to surrender to primitives?" Kethvar looked at his tactical display one more time. Human ships surrounded his fleet from every direction. His mighty war fleet was reduced to 24 damaged vessels and thousands of dead crew members. "I am ordering you to save the lives of your crews," he replied. "These humans are not primitives. They are warriors. And today, they have proven themselves the better warriors." The surrender took 3 hours to complete. Human ships moved carefully through the wreckage, rescuing Imperial survivors and providing medical aid to the wounded. Admiral Chen himself came aboard the Eternal Dominance to accept Kethvar's formal surrender. The 2 admirals stood in the flagship's damaged conference room, representing civilizations separated by thousands of years of technological development. Yet in that moment they understood each other perfectly. "How?" Kethvar asked simply. "How did you defeat a war fleet with primitive ships?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, your people fight to conquer. Mine fight to survive. When conquest fails, conquerors surrender. When survival fails, we die. The difference is that we never consider surrender an option." As Chen left the ship, Kethvar slumped in his command chair and tried to imagine explaining this defeat to his emperor. The Zephyrian Empire had sent its finest fleet against primitive humans and been crushed. But the worst part was not the military defeat. It was the realization that Admiral Chen was right. The humans had not just won a battle. They had revealed a fundamental weakness in the Imperial system. When Imperial ships were destroyed, Imperial crews surrendered. When human ships were destroyed, human crew. The Imperial throne room had never been so quiet. Emperor Vashitai sat motionless on his living metal throne, staring at the holographic reports floating before him. The numbers were clear. undeniable and impossible to accept. War Fleet 7, destroyed or captured. Admiral Kethvar, prisoner of the humans, Imperial casualties, over 40,000 dead. Human casualties, estimated 12,000. 12,000 humans had defeated 40,000 of the Empire's finest soldiers. Your Majesty, came a hesitant voice from the shadows. Intelligence Officer Yil Andra stepped into the dim light, her data tablet glowing in her hands. There is more news from the front. The Emperor did not look up. More defeats? The humans have begun what they call a liberation campaign. They are advancing into Imperial space, attacking our client worlds. But, Your Majesty, they are not behaving like conquerors. That caught his attention. Explain. Yilandra activated her tablet, and new holograms appeared around the throne. 7 worlds have fallen to human forces in the past month. In every case, the humans have offered the local populations a choice: remain under Imperial rule or join what they call the Terran Coalition. And every world has chosen to join the coalition, Your Majesty. The humans are not forcing surrender. They are inspiring rebellion. The Emperor finally looked up, his glowing eyes fixing on the intelligence officer. That is impossible. Those worlds have been part of the Empire for centuries. Their people know the benefits of Imperial protection. With respect, Your Majesty, perhaps they remember the costs as well. The words hung in the air like a challenge. No one had spoken to the Emperor like that in over 1,000 years. But these were not normal times. Show me the planet files, he commanded. The holographic display changed, showing detailed information about the 7 liberated worlds. The Emperor read through the data with growing unease. Each planet had been conquered centuries ago. Each population had been forced to provide tribute and soldiers to the Empire. Each world had seen their native culture slowly erased and replaced with Imperial standards. They see the humans as liberators, not conquerors, Yilandra continued carefully. The Coalition offers them something the Empire never has: a choice. The Empire offers them peace and protection, the Emperor replied, but his voice lacked conviction. The Empire offers them slavery with comfortable chains, Your Majesty. The humans offer them freedom, even the freedom to fail. Another voice spoke from the entrance to the throne room. Your Majesty, you summoned me. Fleet Admiral Zarthek, the Empire's highest military commander, strode into the chamber. His armor was polished to perfection, his metals gleaming in the dim light. He represented everything the Imperial military was supposed to be: powerful, disciplined, undefeated. Until now. Admiral, I need options, the Emperor said simply. The humans are advancing deeper into our territory. Our fleets are destroyed, or in retreat. Our client worlds are joining the enemy. How do we stop them? Zarthek looked uncomfortable. Your Majesty, I have been studying the human tactics and capabilities. They present unique challenges, such as their ships are individually inferior to ours, but they use them in ways we never anticipated. They sacrifice vessels and crew members to achieve tactical objectives. They coordinate their fleets using methods that our military doctrine does not address. Most importantly, they seem to view every engagement as a fight to the death. The Emperor gestured impatiently. So we adapt. We learn their tactics. We match their desperation. I do not think we can, Your Majesty, Zarthek said quietly. Why not? The Fleet Admiral was silent for a long moment. Because they are fighting for something we do not understand. When our ships are damaged, our crews evacuate and surrender. They follow proper military procedure. But when human ships are damaged, their crews often choose to ram our vessels rather than abandon ship. They fight until their ships are destroyed and their bodies are floating in space. Fanaticism, the Emperor dismissed. It can be overcome. No, Your Majesty. I do not believe it is fanaticism. I believe it is something else entirely. Yilandra stepped forward. Your Majesty, I have been studying human historical records. These beings have been fighting for survival their entire existence, not just as a species but as individuals. Their homeworld tried to kill them every day for millions of years. She activated her tablet again, and the hologram showed images of Earth. Massive storms that could level cities, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, ice ages that covered continents, earthquakes that split the ground open, predators that hunted humans as prey. They evolved on a world that was actively trying to exterminate them, she continued. Then they spent thousands of years fighting wars against each other. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. Fighting impossible odds is not unusual for them. It is their natural state. The Emperor stared at the images in fascination. How did they survive? By never giving up, Your Majesty. By treating every challenge as something to overcome rather than something to avoid. By working together when they had to, even with enemies they had been fighting the day before. Fleet Admiral Zarthek nodded grimly. This explains their military doctrine. They do not fight to win battles, Your Majesty. They fight to win wars. They will sacrifice anything, including their own lives, to achieve victory. And our forces? Our forces fight to avoid losses. When faced with certain death, they surrender. It is the rational choice. But rationality is useless against an enemy that chooses death over defeat. The Emperor rose from his throne and walked to the great window that overlooked his capital city. Below him, the lights of 1 trillion beings sparkled in the darkness. The Zephyrian Empire was the greatest civilization in galactic history. Biswari, people had built wonders that would last forever. They had created peace and prosperity on thousands of worlds, but they had also created an empire of subjects, not citizens. When the humans offered freedom, entire worlds chose to abandon imperial protection. Your Majesty, Ylandra said softly, there is something else. Our intelligence networks have identified the human home system. Earth is defended by massive orbital fortifications and thousands of warships. But that is not their primary defense. What is the planet itself, Your Majesty? Any invasion force that tried to land on Earth would face gravity that would crush most of our soldiers. They would breathe air that is poisonous to our species. They would fight in weather conditions that would kill our troops before the battle even began, and they would be fighting humans on their home ground, defending their families. The Emperor closed his eyes. You are telling me that these humans are unbeatable. No, Your Majesty. I am telling you that they cannot be conquered. There is a difference. Fleet Admiral Zarthek cleared his throat. Your Majesty, I believe we have 3 options. We can continue fighting and lose more fleets. We can retreat to the core worlds and hope they do not follow. Or, we can negotiate, Your Majesty. We can try to make peace. The word peace echoed strangely in the throne room. The Zephyrian Empire did not make peace with inferior species. They granted mercy to the defeated. They offered protection to the weak. They did not negotiate as equals, but the humans had made it clear that they were not inferior. They had proven they were not weak, and they certainly had not been defeated. What would they want in return for peace? The Emperor asked. Ylandra consulted her tablet. Based on their public transmissions, they want us to withdraw from occupied territories and grant independence to all client species. They want reparations paid to worlds that were conquered against their will. They want the Empire to recognize the coalition as a legitimate government. They want us to dismantle the Empire. They want us to transform it, Your Majesty, from a military dictatorship to a voluntary alliance. The Emperor stared out at his city for a long time. Everything his ancestors had built over 3,000 years was threatened by beings who had barely learned to travel between stars. It was humiliating. It was unthinkable. It was also, he realized, probably inevitable. How long before they reached the core worlds? He asked finally. At their current rate of advance, 2 years, Your Majesty, Fleet Admiral Zarthek replied. Unless we can stop them. And can we stop them? The silence that followed was answer enough. The Emperor turned away from the window and walked back to his throne. For 3,000 years, his family had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and military might, but the humans had shown that determination and courage could overcome any technological advantage. Perhaps it was time to learn what the humans had always known. Sometimes the only way to win a war was to be willing to lose everything. Prepare. A communication to Admiral Chen, he said finally. Tell him the Emperor wishes to discuss terms. 2 years had passed since the first contact at Proxima Gate. What the Zephyrian Empire had expected to be a quick conquest had become the longest war in their history. Human fleets now controlled 37 former Imperial worlds, and each victory brought more species into the growing coalition. Emperor Vashatai stood in his private study, reviewing reports that told the same story over and over. Retreat, defeat, rebellion, surrender. His mighty empire was crumbling, not through overwhelming force, but through something far more dangerous. Hope. The humans had proven that the empire could be beaten. That realization had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Client species that had served loyally for centuries were suddenly questioning their place in the Imperial Order. Some were even launching their own rebellions inspired by human success. A soft chime announced an incoming priority transmission. The Emperor accepted the call, and Admiral Chen's familiar face appeared in the holographic display. The human looked older now, wearing the exhaustion of 2 years of constant warfare. But his eyes still held the same determination that had shocked the galaxy at their first meeting. Your Majesty, Chen said with a slight nod. I understand you wish to discuss terms. Indeed, Admiral. It seems this war has reached a point where continued fighting serves neither of our peoples. Chen's expression remained neutral. Respectfully, Your Majesty, this war could end tomorrow if the Empire simply withdrew from occupied territories and granted freedom to your client species. The Coalition has no interest in conquering Imperial core worlds or ruling over your people. You ask? For the impossible, Admiral. The Empire has existed for 3,000 years. We cannot simply abandon our responsibilities overnight. Your responsibilities? Chen's voice carried a hint of steel. Your Majesty, we have liberated 17 worlds in the past 6 months. On every single one, the local population celebrated our arrival and begged us to stay. Those do not sound like people who felt protected by Imperial rule. The Emperor was quiet for a moment. Intelligence reports had confirmed Chen's words. The so-called liberated worlds were not just joining the Coalition. They were actively helping human forces plan attacks on remaining Imperial positions. What do you propose, Admiral? Complete withdrawal from all occupied territories. Recognition of the Coalition as a sovereign government. Reparations for worlds damaged during Imperial conquest. And most importantly, a guarantee that the Empire will never again attempt to conquer free species. And in return, peace, Your Majesty. The Coalition will recognize Imperial sovereignty over your core worlds and species that choose to remain. In the Empire, we will establish trade agreements and diplomatic relations. We will even provide mutual defense against external threats. The Emperor almost laughed. You offer to defend us? Admiral, 2 years ago we had never heard of your species. Now you speak as if humanity is the dominant power in this galaxy. Your Majesty, Chen replied calmly. Where are my ships right now? The question caught the Emperor off guard. What do you mean? I am asking a simple question. At this moment, where is the Terran Coalition fleet positioned? The Emperor felt a chill run through his body. He activated his personal communication system and contacted Fleet Command. This is the Emperor. I need the current position of the human fleet. The response came back immediately, and the blood drained from the Emperor's face. Your Majesty, our sensors show Coalition ships in orbit around the Imperial capital. They appeared 20 minutes ago. Chen's image flickered as the transmission was interrupted by proximity alarms throughout the palace. The Emperor looked up at the ceiling, knowing that somewhere above him, human warships were positioned in perfect attack formation around his home world. How? He whispered. Your Majesty? Chen continued as if nothing had happened. For 2 years, your fleets have retreated every time we advanced. Your commanders have grown accustomed to running away from human ships. So when our fastest vessels began a pursuit course toward your core worlds, your remaining fleets assumed we were chasing them, They never considered that we might simply ignore them and continue straight to our real target. The Emperor stared at the human admiral in a mixture of admiration and terror. You flew past our defensive fleets? We flew through them, Your Majesty. Your ships are positioned to stop an invasion fleet. They were not prepared for a small force moving at maximum speed with no intention of stopping to fight. How many ships? Enough, Your Majesty. On cue, the lights in the Imperial Palace flickered as the building's shields activated. Outside, the Emperor could hear the distant sound of atmospheric defense systems coming online. His people were preparing for a siege of their own capital. Admiral, the Emperor said slowly, you have made your point. You could destroy this world if you chose to do so. Yes, Your Majesty, we could, but that would make us no different from the empire we are fighting. Instead, I am offering you the same choice we have offered every world we have liberated: freedom or continued resistance. And if I choose continued resistance? Chen's expression grew sad. Then you will lose everything, Your Majesty. Not through conquest, but through the slow collapse of an empire that no longer has the will to hold itself together. Your remaining fleets will eventually surrender or defect. Your client species will join the coalition one by one. Your core worlds will begin to question whether they want to remain part of a failing government. In the end, you will rule over nothing but empty space. The Emperor closed his eyes. Everything Chen said was true. The reports from across the galaxy confirmed it. The Empire was not being destroyed by human weapons. It was being abandoned by its own people. What guarantee do I have that your coalition will honor any agreement we make? The same guarantee you gave to the species you conquered, Your Majesty. You will have to trust us. The irony was not lost on the Emperor. For 3,000 years, the Empire had demanded trust from conquered peoples while offering nothing in return but superior force. Now the humans were asking him to make the same leap of faith. I need time to consider your terms, he said finally. Of course, Your Majesty. But I should inform you that this offer will not remain open indefinitely. Every day this war continues, more beings die unnecessarily. At some point, the coalition will decide that peace is not worth the cost of waiting for it. The transmission ended, leaving the Emperor alone in his study. Through the great windows, he could see the lights of his capital city sparkling in the darkness. Somewhere above those lights, human ships waited with weapons that could turn his entire world into radioactive dust. But they were not firing. They were waiting for his answer. A chime announced another incoming call. This time it was Fleet Admiral Zarthek, calling from the bridge of his flagship somewhere in the outer system. Your Majesty, my remaining ships are requesting permission to attack the human fleet. How many ships do we have left, Admiral? 17 capital ships, Your Majesty, plus supporting vessels. Against how many human ships? Our sensors indicate 12 coalition vessels in orbit around the capital. The Emperor almost smiled. Even now, with defeat staring them in the face, his admiral was thinking about tactical advantages. 17 against 12 seemed like reasonable odds. Admiral, in 2 years of warfare, have our fleets ever achieved victory when facing equal or greater human numbers? The silence that followed was answer enough. I see, the Emperor continued. And what do you think will happen to my world if your attack fails and those 12 human ships decide to retaliate? Your Majesty, surely they would not destroy a populated world. Admiral, these humans have spent 2 years proving that they will do whatever is necessary to win. They have sacrificed their own ships and crews without hesitation. Do you really believe they will show mercy to the capital of the empire that has been trying to exterminate them? Another long silence. Your orders, Your Majesty? The Emperor looked out at his city one more time. Billions of beings lived down there, trusting him to protect them. For 3,000 years, his family had kept that trust by being stronger than anyone who threatened them. But strength, he had learned, was not just about having the biggest weapons or the most ships. Sometimes it was about knowing when to stop fighting. Stand down, Admiral. All ships are to maintain position but take no aggressive action. Your Majesty? Prepare a broadcast to all Imperial worlds. Tomorrow I will address the Empire. The next day, Emperor Vashatai stood before cameras that would carry his words to every corner of his former domain. He wore his formal robes of state, but somehow they felt heavier than usual. Citizens of the Empire, he began, for 3,000 years, our civilization has brought order to the galaxy. We have ended wars, protected the weak, and built a peace that has lasted longer than the history of most species. But today, that age comes to an end. He paused, gathering strength for what he had to say next. The Terran Coalition has proven that our way of governing is no longer acceptable to the peoples of this galaxy. They have shown that beings prefer freedom to security, choice to order, and hope to certainty. Today, I am announcing the transformation of the Zephyrian Empire into the Zephyrian Federation, a voluntary alliance of free worlds. The words felt strange in his mouth, but somehow liberating. To be